perhaps, well, that's for sure that it's not a decoration function, something like that, so it's a semantic function. And in the Li language, they call it kapan. Yeah, it's in Chinese it is said that it's a hu yao dai, it's a protective belt. So maybe this is a kind of confirmation of some kind of protection function of this ornament, because we have found this ornament not only on some belts for handloom, but what more, on the houses and on the shutters. So on Li hunting bags also, maybe also a protection function. So this is actually the question we wanted to discuss, and we wanted to discuss with all the scientific community of Vietnam, the semantics of this ornamentation. Because here, in the ethnographic museum, such an ornament is found both on the needlework cases and on all the walnut houses, on shutters, which perhaps also has a protection function, we don't know. So similar decoration of walls are common for Ainu, also on the walls, and the technique of making such a wicker work is absolutely the same with the north of Siberia. And one more very interesting example is a shoulder box from Borneo. And it's also interesting in this case because this ornament decorates only one side of the box, so the one that is directly adjacent to the man's back. So it's not a decoration function again. So it's just an example. So we can name not only this ornament but also another quite similar, like this one from Nadinsky Городок from the north of Siberia and from Borneo again. Or these fish images from Paluski Городок and the hunters and gatherers of Hainan Island. This is one of the most interesting and most discussing example because, well, swastika, well, not as a separate image, but as some kind of line that borders the picture. Well, here it is considered to be a Buddhist symbol, but we have found absolutely the same. Also borders the picture, so it's at the edges, and it's the 1st century BC, so it cannot be somehow connected to the Buddhism. Or some of this also, so quite a lot of them, and also these meanders, which show the movements of winds, of clouds, so the technique is also the same. So speaking again about the northern peoples of Siberia, for us these ornaments are interesting in the context of the formation and resettlement of the ancestors of the peoples of North Siberia. So scientists attribute their migration processes to the Upper Paleolithic, to the early Neolithics, when the climate changes caused by global warming of the Atlantic climate period opened the way to the north for the inhabitants of southern territories. So the early Neolithic indeed is characterized by increased mobility of population in comparison with, for example, the Upper Paleolithic. And it is obvious that the mankind was not formed in northern Eurasia, but what were the initial migration points? We don't have any answer yet. And according to the paleoecologists in the early Neolithic, the middle and polar Ural was characterized by large forests and a climate that allowed people to settle down and to stay in that region. And of course, adapting to the new conditions somehow changed the traditions of Asian tribes, but there maybe were some conservative spheres of human life where tradition was stronger than any of adaptive processes and remained unchanged for thousands of years. It is possible to find some relict features, some stable markers that indicate the resettlement of ancient human that preserve the original meaning. Well, after all, we know such an example actually of this kind of stable markers, Like, for example, the one which is with the change of generations, with the appearance of new technologies, nothing changed. So the semantic component remained unchanged. Here I mean the needle cases from diaphysis of the tubular bird bones. So both epiphyses were cut off in order to make a hollow tube with rather thin walls. So such bone needle cases appear in the Neolithic, and they have existed for a long time in many cultures, from the Stone Age, and for example, in the Metal Age, along with the ones made from bones, metal needle cases appear, and they're exactly similar in shape and the size with those who were made from hollow bird bones. So, and these are the example of modern ethnography. So these needle cases from bird bones are used even in modern ethnography. So for Asian countries, the tradition of weaving, making wicker ornaments out of organic material is characteristic feature up to present day. But in the North, this tradition gradually degraded, and only some of the elements remain unchanged on some conservative spheres, for example, on ritual needlework. But when Russians appeared in West Siberia, they somehow changed a lot the spiritual life and spiritual culture. So the exploration of Siberia and the beginning of Russian colonization led to a further loss of the cultural identity and to the spreading of Russian culture influence. But wicker ornaments disappear as rudiments of traditional culture with the development of technology. But perhaps the wicker ornaments which are so typical for the Eastern Asia are the example of some common cultural basis and can point out the connections between Asian population of the South and the North of Asia. So this report is not a kind of a strict conclusion or something like that, it's just a kind of a topic for the discussion. And as I said, it's an invitation for cooperation, not only in ethnography but also in archaeology, to investigate and to clear the white spots in ancient history of Eurasia. Thank you for the attention.
Any questions?
Oh, thank you very much for the visitor. Nhưng mà sự thảo luận câu hỏi hay là bình luận gì đấy. Dr. Michael.
Oh, thank you so much for your presentation. It's very interesting. So, I just had a question about the environment when you found the part. I thought you found the birth buckets. So the environment of the site you excavation is a waterlogged or the terrace?
No, it's frozen culture layer.
Frozen
Layer. You know, the soils in the north of Siberia cannot have the organic material to stay long. So the only situation when organic materials can be found is the frozen layer.
Yes,
so that's why there are not many of them.
Yeah, I see. Because in the tropical area, it's very difficult to find the plant remain like the organic material, because only like destroyed by the temperature and humidity. And so the second one is what materials, what they make from. You mean the birch buckets? It made from bamboo or from what kind of?
Birch bark. Birch bark.
Ah, birch bark.
Sometimes grass.
I see.
And that's it. So there are very thin stripes. It's usually no more than 1 centimeter, so they're very thin. But usually birch bark in 90%.
Thank you.
just wanted to discuss if this idea is somehow very can it be possible, these wide migrations or not? Because, well, for example, in the agricultural areas of China, we cannot find this kind of materials. Only the modern ethnography of hunters and gatherers, probably living, for example, on Hainan Island, or maybe the indigenous peoples of Vietnam. So this is actually the main reason we came here, in order to have a collaboration with Vietnamese archaeologists and ethnographers to find more examples about these connections and maybe that wide migrations up to the north. So we have some books also prepared for the library of the Institute of Archaeology and the letter of cooperation. So we are very open to any kind of cooperation, any kind of work together.
I'm sorry that if I'm not clear about your discussion, but I still want to know more about what about the environment for the site, because you talk about the several century BC up to 15th, 17th century. If you still find that, it means that in the environment there is available with that kind of material, is it?
Yeah, in the early Neolithic, the environment was completely different because, of course, there were large forests. It was pretty convenient for the migrants from the south to settle down in the area. But, of course, afterwards the climate changed a lot, and so they had to adapt to the colder temperatures, to the colder weather, and to this kind of transformations. But so it depends on a period we're talking about. So the early Neolithic is quite warm, it's quite comfortable. But of course the Middle Ages, well, not that comfortable.
Okay, but still, when you talk about the similarity between the material, the artifact there with something in Hainan or Vietnam, so it means that it's, at the same time the two areas have the same environment.